Hello, we're here for another edition of our Summit Racing Performance Parts Expo video series. Throughout these episodes, we're chatting with some of the most recognizable names in the automotive aftermarket, to kind of get a sense of what they've been up to this past year and maybe get a glimpse of what they've got coming down the pipe from like an R&D perspective. Today, we're talking with Brett Olenhouse from Aeromotive, and I'm really interested in hearing what's new here because folks often overlook the importance of the fuel system when it comes to making power. Like, with builders now regularly reaching upwards of, say, 1,000 horsepower with late model engine builds, or even just some good tuning, fuel delivery is a big issue. And the same holds true for engine swaps, right? These situations often require a fuel system retrofit capable of meeting a significantly increased fuel demand. So, Brett, you want to talk to us about Aeromotive and let us know what Aeromotive has up its sleeve for those big power and retrofit folks?
Yeah, sure, definitely. Well, with Aeromotive, you know that we always are looking for solutions to problems that customers may have, either with their hot rods or their drag cars or their street cars. We're always looking for solutions to problems. That's what we do. So we find a problem, we find the solution. That's what we're known for, is fixing problems. With some of the late model aspects of it, we're looking like the new Subaru stuff, like the WRX STIs, the Jeep Gladiators. There's a lot of customers that are doing Hellcat swaps into the Gladiators. We're also looking at some of the CTS-V, ATS-V setups, and some of the late model Camaros. Some of the customers were looking to do basically a clean install. They were looking to keep it stock oriented. So they wanted to have it nice, clean install, drop into the factory location. But like you said, they wanted to add extra flow for that increased horsepower they were looking to gain. So we came up with a solution for those applications of a drop-in unit for factory locations of the Subaru, the Gladiator, the ATS-V on the Cadillacs, and the Camaro.
Okay, so what kind of issues does the stock pumps just not keeping up?
Yeah, they were just basically, adequate for the stock power levels. And when guys started adding, bigger turbos, or started incorporating more tuning to it, putting bigger injectors, wanted to put bigger aftermarket fuel rails on for the added flow, they needed something that would support those modifications.
Okay, and so you've designed. Is this an intake, like a drop-in intake pump?
Yes, it actually is. It's a fairly simple design. It keeps everything incorporated. There's a lot of OEM incorporation into this, so they can keep a lot of their factory aspects of their tank. It uses our jet siphon ability, so they can keep their factory jet siphon, but it incorporates it with ours as well. They can use single pump options. So there's a single 450 on this Subaru setup here. It's got incorporations for a return line on this and the factory jet siphon in this. So what that does for the customer is, if they're like rally racing this or street course driving their car, it helps with fuel slosh. So it picks up on like the other style of tanks. So it keeps it flowing right around the pumps. So you don't have any issues with, dry run or any issue along that lines. As incorporation for the factory fuel level sending unit. So you can run the factory gauge setup. You don't have to run any aftermarket gauge. But these are also E85 compatible because these are flex fuel pumps. So if the guys want to run the corn fuel, they've got that option as well.
Yeah, you brought up an interesting point. I mean, how much modification you say it will work with the factory fuel pump or the factory fuel sender and stuff? I mean, how much other is there any significant modification you need to do to the tank or anything?
No, these actually drop right into the factory tank. They use the factory style lock ring and O-ring in it. So it's basically just a drop in, hook your lines up, on your merry way you go.
Okay. And you said you've got applications for that's the WRX STI and
Yes, this is WRX. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and can you talk about some of the other? You alluded to some Cadillac. Is it some Cadillac applications?
Yeah, we're doing it for the 2016 to 2019 Cadillac CTS-V ATS-Vs. A similar setup as a Subaru setup. It's got factory return line hookups for it. And it's got more than just, your single 450 pumps or your dual 450 pumps in there. So for the guys that are adding the extra horsepower to it or bumping up turbos or whatever the case may be, there's that added fuel flow there with her. And then some guys like to run, the alternative fuels like the E85. So they're flex fuel pumps, so they're capable of handling E85.
Right, and you alluded to. I apologize that I missed it earlier. How much horsepower can the Aeromotive pump support?
Well, let's see. On the WRX STI, depending on if you run a dual 340 or a single 450, and if it's forced induction and we're running just, standard pump gas, and on a single 340 pump of ours, you can look at, 595 flywheel on up. If you run like a single 450, you're looking at like 700. So, I mean, you're talking, way above stock on these.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and let me ask you this: say if I've got whatever, would be it a Cadillac, Subaru, whatever, and I'm going to add some power to it, be it a different supercharger pulley or upgraded turbo. What kind of issues you alluded to fuel slosh, but what kind of things can I look for to say that kind of tell me that, oh man, my fuel pump can't help here. It needs assistance.
Usually if fuel pumps can't keep up, like factory fuel pumps can't keep up with the demand, you'll have lean conditions, you might have cavitation issues or dry run issues. With the factory tanks, some of them are the saddlebag towel tanks, so they sit over the drivetrain. So when you're driving excessively, either the G-forces is pulling the fuel to one side of the tank or the other. So what our unit does is keeps the fuel flow around the centralized of the fuel pump itself, which is where the jet siphon comes in. It picks the fuel up where the fuel is actually, pulls it back to the pump itself. So if a customer is aggressively driving it or road racing it or whatever, they want to see a little track time with it, then that helps keep the fuel around the pump so you don't have any kind of cavitation or dry run issues you would see if you kept the factory type setup.
Right on. Well, and let's talk about, because you said something that kind of piqued my curiosity. A Jeep Gladiator with a Hellcat swap.
Yes, was still really popular. I mean, it was really popular last year at SEMA. But basically with the Gladiator, people wanted to Hellcat swap the Gladiator. They liked the aspect of it being a Jeep/truck kind of aspect of it. So they wanted to put the big Hellcat in it so they could get the power added and still keep the functionality of their Jeep truck. So what we did is we have a similar drop-in unit. It uses a factory style tank, drop-in assembly, lock ring, O-ring, all that stuff. It's flex fuel capable. So if a guy wants to use the 85 and do off-road with him, then it's there. It comes with a 525 or 450. 525 on some of the Hellcats was factory. So we kept that aspect of it so it could fuel the factory Hellcat crate motors. Some of the factory crate motors were PWM, which is pulse width modulation. So basically the ECM can control the pump, and vary it for demand. So on that aspect of it, if you did that, that's where some people didn't want to run a return line. So they could run the PWM and it would just negate the ability to have a return line. So they didn't have to run extra lines, any of that extra work. They could basically just drop it in, set it up, and the computer would do the rest. In some aspects of it too, you could run a return line if you start, taking it up a notch. And that's where the added flow of the pump would help out. So if you start, doing the Hellcat, you drop in, bigger supercharger, bigger turbocharger, whatever the case may be, then that's where you need to start, running a bigger regulator and a return line and everything to keep that support there for that added flow.
And does you mentioned for the other pumps, the Cadillac and the Subaru pumps, in road racing, autocross, and et cetera, the fuel slosh, is that such a big deal in off-roading? I mean, you do talk about a lot of off-angle maneuverability. How does Aeromotive confront that?
Yeah, definitely. Like let's use the Gladiator for an example. Like guys that like to do off-roading, they see a lot of vertical climbing or a lot of obtuse angles that they see that's moving that fuel all over the place or keeping it in a location that's not where the pump pickup was from the factory. So with that aspect of it, what we did is we have our Phantom technology, which has the baffle assembly around the pump, and then that incorporates our patented jet siphon, which picks up the factory jet siphon capabilities and picks it up from the other side of the tank, keeps it around the pump assembly. So when these guys are seeing the angles from off-roading, or it could be the possibility of the higher G-forces when they're doing the rally racing and everything, helps keep the fuel around the pump. The factory setup was not adequate enough for this more aggressive driving the customer was seeing with these applications that they were modifying.
So would you offer any of those solutions for we're talking about the Gladiator with the Hellcat motor? Do you offer any of these solutions for just like a stock JL or a JK?
I don't believe so yet. I think it's in the works though. There is talk of it. It just kind of depends on the marketplace and what everybody is asking for. Like I said, if there's a problem with it and we can develop a solution for it, we'll definitely release something for it. Can't say if there's something in the pipelines yet, but I would say probably if there's a demand for it, we can definitely accommodate it.
You got to keep that secret sauce secret, right?
Yeah, that's right. You got it.
Well, what else has been coming down the R&D pipeline over there?
Oh, we're working on a lot of stuff in the R&D stuff, a lot of stuff I can't talk about right now. Pretty much anything that the customer we hear about over phones, like I hear in person at trade shows or from customers over the phone on tech support or something, there's always somebody that has a different variation. There's always some guy changing factory to aftermarket, and they want a solution to fuel that. You know, you got you guys that I had a phone call yesterday about an Opel of all things, an Opel,
Like a GT?
And it was just like, wow, somebody has these and they're modifying it. You know, it's just like, where does it stop and where does it end? You know, where does it begin? So it's intense to see these guys have this much drive and passion to modify something from like an Opel to a Corvair or, you know, the Gladiators or Subarus. It's all over the place. So finding solutions for these people is very, very rewarding when it's all said and done.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to tell us about Aeromotive now that we got a chance to talk?
Just let everybody know that Aeromotive is always here for the customer base. We've always been big about customers. If they have any issues, we're always available to talk about it. If they have any questions about any of the products we've talked about today, they're welcome to give us a call. Be more than happy to discuss any of the aspects they have it. We're here, you know, everybody's family to us, so they're more than welcome to give us a ring.
Right on. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. Certainly looks like the gang at Aeromotive has been keeping plenty busy. Brett, again, thank you for giving us a glimpse of what you've been up to. And I'm pretty sure it caught the ears of a lot of the folks watching this. And for those of you tuning in, make sure to subscribe to the Summit Racing YouTube channel. You know, that way you won't miss any new updates or upcoming project builds or celebrity interviews. And certainly we'll have more features coming soon in our Performance Parts Expo video series and plenty more vehicle features, tech tips, enthusiasts talks from Summit Racing. Brett, thank you again. This is Brett Olenhouse from Aeromotive. And that'll do it for this edition of the Performance Parts Expo video feature from Summit Racing.